You know, transportation for the state of Georgia, in addition to the legislative body, transportation is a driving force for our thriving economic success. And I see that every day as we make improvements, such as with this project right here, a big safety project, but it also is for economic development and helping our ports as we go forward. You know, the truckers, the good things that they do in and out of the ports, carrying to the inlands, you know, it just doesn't stop here. It goes all the way through the state of Georgia and all over the United States. And from these ports, it goes all international. So what better way to do a celebration but to celebrate right here with our project that is so very important to our state, but also to our community for economic development. So with that, a gentleman that has true at heart everything to do with transportation, I introduce to you our Undersecretary of Transportation for Policy, Derek Kahn.
Earlier this week, the President had the State of the Union address where he talked about infrastructure. And we've already begun as an administration working a lot in implementing some of the President's vision. And so part of that is going to states around the country and seeing what states do well, and going to states that don't do well and teaching them what these states do. And that's why we started in Georgia, because under the leadership of Ann and Russell and all the folks here, this state is incredible when it comes to transportation. And so since the beginning of the Trump administration, we have focused on rebuilding our roads and bridges. We have committed as an administration to making our roads, our bridges, our transportation system great again. And Georgia is a great example of that. Since the beginning of the administration, Georgia has been awarded $3.7 billion in transportation funds from the U.S. Department of Transportation. And of that, $100 million has gone to the airports, but the vast majority has gone to projects like the SR 400 around Atlanta. It's gone to I-95, and it's gone to the Jimmy DeLuche Parkway. And so the department has allocated about $20 million in funds from the Federal Highway Administration and federal aid funds to build this parkway. And when we talk about how Georgia does things amazingly well, this is a great example. You see a partnership from the local region, from the state, and from the federal government. And a large part of that is from the leadership of folks like Ann and Russell. And so again, I want to thank both of you for your great leadership in making this transportation system incredibly effective and efficient. And finally, what we see in Georgia that is incredible is innovation. And what I mean by that is oftentimes when we think of innovation, we think of drones and self-driving cars, we think of space shuttles. Innovation comes in a ton of different form factors. And it's not just Silicon Valley that thinks about innovation and technology. It's actually places like Georgia that is the most innovative transportation department in the country. All of these innovations are powerful. They're not only powerful for the state of Georgia, they're powerful to the nation because we look to folks like Russell, like Ann, and say, what's worked well in your state, and how do we export that know-how, that innovation, to the rest of the country?
I just want to let the Undersecretary know one thing, and that is the Kemp administration here in Georgia is 100% behind the Trump administration's infrastructure priorities. Your priorities are our priorities.
The U.S. DOT under the Trump administration has made infrastructure a priority. And I certainly can attest the great work of what U.S. DOT is doing, advancing the nation's transportation infrastructure in a way like I've never seen as a career transportation person. And I can't say enough good about U.S. DOT Secretary Elaine Chao and her vision and direction for the U.S. Department of Transportation and all the transportation agencies, and the great work that Undersecretary Kahn is doing. It is truly transformative. In fact, I've never seen such a collaborative approach out of Washington as what the U.S. DOT does in looking how to innovate for transportation, bring value for transportation, to drive the economy, and most importantly, look to how to streamline delivering transportation quicker than we ever have before as this nation. And again, I would just today say thank you for Undersecretary Kahn being here. Certainly a big thank you for Secretary Elaine Chao, who is a great partner, for them visiting Georgia today, but more importantly for the great work they're doing for this nation to really transform how this nation improves transportation infrastructure, and certainly to President Trump's administration for their focus and guidance for helping Georgia with all our projects and making sure that we have a successful future.
Secretary Khan, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Southeast Georgia, to Georgia, and really, I think you did such a great job of highlighting the special things that are happening here and things you can't find happening in many places around the U.S. And that's happening because of the great relationship, starting with Governor Kemp, that flows down through GDOT and through Georgia Ports and the other 8 state agencies. We work together to make things happen. The Savannah Harbor Expansion Program is a $1 billion project. We got help from the federal government to the tune of $100 million last year, the first time ever that we received the funding that we requested. Thank you so much. That's what's allowing us to move forward.
To the state. And so I don't know what you're doing, Griff, but you better prepare for a lot more business coming up in the coming quarters and coming years.
Good.
We know that there's going to be a lot of new projects that will need to be done around both the western and eastern seaboards. We've already begun to think a lot about ports, particularly around talking to folks like Russell and say, how should we design this? And so if this port project becomes law, we will be looking to thought leaders, folks like you around the table.
Amazon is one of our fastest growing customers. Auto parts would be another one. And then export, so there's a whole list of retail, but on the export side, the thing that makes us the most attractive port, and I probably should have said this earlier, is we have an export base that just about matches.
He was the division commander down here in Atlanta.
Working on a couple of projects up in Macon to replace bridges over railroads that would inhibit impediments to our small cities where trains are getting longer and them just being able to get across. Right now we've got about 4 or 5 cities asking for help just getting the grade separate across the railroads. And so those are things that we think about going forward. Not necessarily sure that there's a congressional authorization there, but to be able to address those kind of things fast. Obviously, you get into the NEPA process and a lot of those things, especially in cities. You get into
Follow our world day to day. This is a perfect example of why Russell and his team are truly just visionaries. Because early this week's been Innovation Week for the department. On Monday, I was in Silicon Valley, met with self-driving truck companies, met with Google talking about drones and self-driving cars. Yesterday, Richard Branson, who runs Virgin Atlantic, sort of all Virgin companies, was at the department, and he's building a space company. And so you have all of these people who have visionary ideas, but they have sort of this idea of having self-driving trucks all around the country. Well, there are no roads that accommodate self-driving trucks. Non-careers, political officials were oftentimes, people were afraid to tell them sort of candidly the problems that they're having. I think this administration, we very much welcome it because we don't know what's happening all across the country. We don't know what's happening in the field offices. And when that happens, we don't pick up the phone and yell at them. We just say, hey, here's a challenge. How do we solve this? And the regional folks oftentimes are disconnected from the federal folks and vice versa because of just
Connecting infrastructure, that connectivity system, we do partner with local, state, and federal government to see those things come to reality. When it comes to the port itself and our fence line, we're spending $200 million a year of capital that we generate to make sure that the facilities the modern facilities that are needed to carry the cargo. And
additional investment, it's mind-blowing from a DC perspective. It's mind-blowing because we travel around the country, see all different projects, all different types of levels of sophistication and insight, and Georgia leads the way. So thank you all very much. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Good to see you. Thanks for being here.